it's important for us to hear the about the issues that concern our members. As you know, and I know some of you did a bit of research that I just overheard, the Heart of Orléans Business Improvement Area is a non-profit board management started by our business community in 2008. BIAs are a way for a district to pull resources to improve the area and have one common voice for the businesses. We do this by promoting the areas as a district, advocating on behalf of our members, and making improvement to the streetscape. The Heart of Orléans BIA includes almost 4 kilometers of St-Joseph Boulevard running parallel to 174. It comes from Preston east to all the way to Uville Drive with a small pocket around Central Boulevard and Place d'Orléans and Jeanne d'Arc Boulevard. So that's basically our district. Orleans has the highest concentration of bilingual and educated citizens in Ottawa, as you can see from my accent. And with our future LRT station, it brings an opportunity to make Orleans the perfect business destination. So we want to hear about you on that subject. We had a specific question that was provided to you prior to our meeting to speak on that subject, because it's some of our concerns for our businesses. For opening statements, we provide each 1 minute, and after we have questions that was provided and a closing statement. For the opening statement, the random order that was picked was Mme. Parot, Mrs. Montgomery, Mr. West, and Mr. Blake. You sat on the right order. That's perfect.
That really happened.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's just for this question.
Yeah, we'll shake things up after.
Seating.
Yeah.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everyone. My name is Manon Parot, and I'm running to be your next MPP in Orleans, which is my community of 35 years. I moved here in 1985. I raised my 2 daughters here. They went to school at Des Pionniers, Béatrice Delage. It's a community that I chose after growing up in the East End and Beacon Hill to raise my family, because it was important to me that my daughters be able to live in French. Advocating for the most vulnerable among us has been my lifelong work. I've worked for over 30 years defending workers' rights, social justice movement. And I've seen a lot of the gains that we make on the grassroots level being wiped out by successive governments. So the passion that I've had in defending people is the one that I want to bring to defend the residents of Orleans.
As a mother and a family health advocate and a resident of Convent Glen North, I'm very happy to be here, and it's a pleasure to be in your company again. I was actually in part of meetings with Jasmine Brown and Lena about 2 or 3 years ago, so I'm happy to see that your efforts still continue. My background's in communications. I've been teaching for the past decade at the University of Ottawa, where I'm also a population health researcher, and my focus is on social supports and healthy outcomes. It goes without saying that listening to the needs of businesses and communicating with owners in our community is of primary importance. It's an opportunity that I take very seriously, and one that our Premier and government does as well. The dimension of my candidacy I want to touch upon was my understanding of how the built environment around us impacts the health outcomes of the people who use it. So the experience of Orleans residents when it comes to transit, incentives to change their behavior towards walking and pedestrian activity, and small business interactions matters. I'm running because I want to use my voice to improve the overall health of Orleans residents and our quality of life.
My name's Andrew West. I'm the Green Party candidate, and like Debbie, I'm a lawyer, and I believe she's a sole practitioner, as am I, which makes me a small business owner. I'm also the son of small business owners. I joined the Green Party after doing a lot of research, and not only did I find that it was the best party for the environment, but it was also the best party for the economy. So the way I like to think of it, green is also the color most associated with money. I made it a point when I ran previously as a candidate to meet with local BIA. So I was previously a candidate in Canada, and I would meet on a semi-regular basis with Rodney Boulevard, who is the head of the CARP corridor BIA. And when Mike Schreiner was coming to Ottawa prior to the 2018 election, and prior to our platform being released, I set up meetings with local BIAs here in Ottawa so we could hear the concerns of small business owners and incorporate that into our platform, because that's how seriously we take it. So hopefully by the end of this breakfast meeting, I will have shown you that I'm the best option to advocate your interests and to be the champion of your voice for the streetscape, I stumble us a lot, streetscape for St-Joseph Boulevard. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde, mon nom est Stephen Blais, je suis le candidat libéral pour l'élection le 27 février. My name is Stephen Blais, I'm the Liberal candidate for our provincial by-election. Since 2006, I've served the community as school trustee and since 2010 as city councillor, and we've been able to get some very big things done. When I was elected in 2010, there was no plan to bring LRT to Orleans. Now it's under construction and will open up opportunities for redevelopment along the St-Joseph corridor through the heart of Orleans. As a result of the work that I did in Carlsbad Springs, advancing zoning and advancing water infrastructure, we were able to attract Amazon to Carlsbad Springs, which is the largest single jobs announcement in the history of the East End, with 600 to 1,000 jobs. Working with the private sector, we were able to develop Millennium Park into the premier sports facility in our community with absolutely no tax dollars going into it, all as a result of relationships with local business communities. I'm very much looking forward to continuing those relationships so that we can leverage the benefits LRT will bring to our community to create the next generation of the Heart of Orleans that we all want to use and be proud of.
The BIA has been lobbying our streetscape plan to all three levels of government for a decade now, with no real results. Now that phase 2 of LRT has commenced, and with 4 LRT stations stopping in Orléans, how and when do you plan to implement streetscape on St-Joseph Boulevard? A more walkable, bikeable district means more people frequent our businesses to shop, eat, and use the many services offered. How will you help our businesses leverage the increased volume along the corridor?
As per random order, it'll be Monsieur Blais, Mrs. Montgomery, Madame Parot, and Mr. West.
In the preamble, you undersold some of the great efforts that the BIA and small business owners have already achieved the last 10 years. If you look at the streetscape plan, the first phase of implementation of the streetscape plan was to animate some of the areas through the heart of Orleans. And with Beer Festival, with the Farmers Market, with the Santa Claus Parade, and with Rib Fest and Poutine Fest, there has been an enormous animation primarily around the Centrum area along the corridor. The corridor is broken down into nodes, as everyone is familiar with through the IBI plan, and where these festivals is happening is one of the nodes that was suggested for focus. The first step was to animate, which the BIA and small business owners I think have done very well. The next step is to focus in on those precincts where this animation has happened and to begin implementing some of the designs and the concepts that are articulated through the IBI plan. I think as a result of that plan was done before LRT was coming to Orleans, and certainly well before the thought of having it down the 174 corridor was predominant. We are now at a point where, as a result of LRT, we are going to start to see a fair amount of redevelopment through the corridor. It's already started. The city has hired a land use consultant, an economic development consultant, to assemble land ownership information and zoning information in and around the LRT stations and through the heart of Orleans, so that the city can undertake an economic development, almost trade mission to Toronto, where real estate income trusts who own a lot of the land, and knock on their doors to tell them that LRT is coming and demonstrate to them some of the options that are available. With Bob Minette, I was very proud to lead the way on the Orleans Community Improvement Plan, which offered tax incentives for up to 10 years for the redevelopment of properties. And why that's so important around LRT is if you look, an aerial view on Google is a very great tool for this. Beside the LRT stations, you have a whole lot of empty land, and most of it's concrete already, parking lots or big box retail that's 25 or 30 years old. That can be and should be redeveloped into mixed use communities where you have office buildings, where you have affordable housing, where you have rental apartments, where you have condos. If you put a grocery store in Place Orleans and you put 1 million square feet of residential space within the parking lot and you put all the parking underground, you now have a fully sustained community, lots of business opportunities, and they're within a walking distance to Place Orleans. I think it's worthwhile, given that LRT is coming, to review the streetscape plan with the economic development project that the city has already initiated to ensure that they're still in sync. Because you don't want to invest in infrastructure changes to St-Joseph and then just have them ripped up the next year, the year later, because someone's putting in a tall building. Or you don't want a building to not be able to happen because we just did work, and when you do work, there's a 5-year moratorium on cutting the street, as an example. And so you need to have some very good linkages between those two activities. One of the things that has come up in conversation, and this might be controversial, but in a blue sky session, Place Orleans Boulevard along the 174 section, right, if in between the 2 ramps to the highway, do we need to have that as a 4 or 5 or 6 lane road? Could it be a little bit more pedestrian friendly? Could we encourage Place Orleans to develop some pads along that frontage like they did with the toy store as an example, but maybe higher density pads? You create a more pedestrian friendly environment, and that can continue along the entirety of the St. Joseph corridor.
Thanks for the really important question. I want to restate that I'm running because I want to use my voice to improve the overall health of Orleans residents and our quality of life. We need to take a systems approach to solving issues in Orleans. So that means looking at the big picture as a whole instead of looking at things in silos. So health services, transit, infrastructure, education, our local economy, and small business support are going to determine our health as a community. And that's why I think that the work that you're doing is so important. I'm the candidate who can give Orleans a voice in government by looking at our entire system and giving our community the support that it needs. So I suggest that we take a 3-pronged approach to really revitalizing St-Joseph Boulevard. That involves fixing LRT and transit. We can't have a broken LRT coming into Orleans because a broken LRT is bad for business. Who's going to take the thing to get into town to do their commerce? It's just not going to work. It's a non sequitur. The PC government wants the best transit options for all Ontarians. So I have serious concerns about the challenges that we're currently facing with the first phase. Orleans has the highest transit ridership in the city. We have to make it easy for residents to come and go, but we also have to make it easy for the rest of the city to come into Orleans and come out. And the little time that we have left for our families is being swallowed by these unpredictable commute times. We want people to be able to come in here at a leisurely rate and be able to enjoy it and feel good about their decision to come to Orleans to do their business. So I maintain that we have to fix the broken LRT first, and I would like to do that with the provincial government working with the municipality to figure out what's gone wrong. So I think we need to correct the issues with the first phase before we even start thinking about, the future phases, which are extremely important, but we have to make sure that the system works. The second thing that I think is extremely important is making Orleans an attractive place to invest. Our government has a history of reducing red tape. The Premier is a businessman first before he's a politician. He's met with a few of you. I know that Andre's had a chance to connect with him. He believes that we have to make it easy for business owners to do their jobs, right? So they're constantly faced with regulations, red tape, and just poor incentives to invest. So we have to make it easy for them to invest here locally. And to the credit of people like yourself and others around this table, not only do you live in Orleans, but you've also chosen to be part of the business world here in Orleans. And we need to see more of that. I'd like to see us maintain a competitive local economy that attracts creative entrepreneurial minds, but that also really encourages talent to stay here and to work here instead of having to face crazy commute times outside of our community. Because guess what? When these employees want to stay here and it's easy for them to stay here and work here, they're going to start using more businesses, right? So I think that that's a really, really important part of the puzzle. So is encouraging having a government champion in Orleans. So I've seen far too much. Residents have told me at the doors that they've always tired of the West getting everything. And I know that business begets business. So if we see that government is serious about supporting not only revitalization, but actually, doing something from a business perspective, I think that really shows the community that it cares, and that it'll also encourage more businesses, smaller businesses, to invest here. The third part of my approach would be renewal planning. It's really important for all sides to work together, and I think that this is a great example of a P3 opportunity, public-private partnership, that would go hand in hand with what Infrastructure Ontario does. So it's important to give businesses a say in the process and provide sort of continuity along that. So we also need to work with residents to understand what their needs are when it comes to the St-Joseph Boulevard that they want to use. So I think that doing that would also ensure that we develop a place that's collegial and a nice environment, a green environment for everyone.
So I completely agree with the goal of a walkable, livable, affordable city, which is accessible for everyone, including drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists. Those should be the goals of community development. I support active transit and would encourage all people to commute and use our local businesses. The Heart of Orléans plan is impressive and delivers on those priorities. I love the green spaces and the plan to create a cohesive, unique Orleans identity. When a community comes up with a plan like this, and it's ignored by every level of government, I think that's shameful. The Liberals have let you down, the Conservatives are letting you down, and they'll both just keep doing that. The NDP would not invest in public-private partnerships, as the city has decided to do with the LRT, and we see what the results of that have been. It's a fiasco. I do not support P3s and believe in direct investment in the infrastructure that you're talking about. Bike paths, reserved lanes, public transit. The province should fund these things and maintain them directly. The NDP, if we form government in 2022, would do that with a $180 billion fund over 10 years to get the entire province up to date. That would translate to roughly $1.8 billion just here in Orleans. And our approach to discussing major investments with local business actors would mean that your BIA would be directly involved in the implementation of such an investment. That way we could have LRT faster, better, reliable, affordable, and meeting the needs of the residents here. We could lay down bike paths with proper security and overall increase employment by coordinating with local chambers of commerce and educational institutions. In our places of work, we will also work to reduce workplace injuries and better support injured workers by making sure that WSIB works for them, and the NDP will invest $57 million annually from the Jobs and Prosperity Fund to create opportunities in the trades. There are a number of other revenue sources that I've kept out of this proposal because of a lack of government transparency, or because there isn't just enough data to make a reliable projection. Some of those potential revenues that were excluded from our framework include the potential for new measures to combat housing speculation, including foreign speculation. I did go and canvass the businesses here on St-Joseph Boulevard a few weeks ago. I talked to a lot of the small business owners, and the thing that kept coming back was their rents. A lot of them are struggling. So, and a lot of families going door to door are seen the dream of owning a home become completely inaccessible. I talked to a father yesterday of 4 kids who lives in a townhouse, which he finds too small. And he says it's the governments have provided funding for down deposits, right? Help with that regard. But they can't afford a $2,000 a month mortgage. It's just not feasible for families. So we need to find ways to address that so that people can have affordable housing in Orleans, and so that businesses can flourish because their rents are just too high. Anyways, that's all I have for now.
First, let me just say that j'ai apprendre le français pour un an et un mois. Donc, we'll get better. Just so you know, it's a strong, it's a very important part of my well-being to learn French. So I just want to make that point clear off the top. So first, when I was reading through the cityscape strategic plan, streetscape strategic plan for St-Joseph Boulevard, what struck me first and foremost was just how much in line it is with the Green Party platform. You want St-Joseph Boulevard to be pedestrian friendly and have businesses closer to the street. You want safe bike paths. You want more green space on the boulevard where people can sit on benches and shop and see art performances. You want to create a more livable city. And that's what the Green Party wants as well. We don't think that people should have to rely on expanding the 147 or the congestion on the 147 or any problems that happen with the LRT. We think that the community should be here, so they don't need to leave. Everything that should be accessible to the community should be here in the community. So residents should be able to enjoy and have the grocery stores nearby that they can get to, so they can have a better quality of life in their own neighborhoods. Now, what I want to get across is, because the big thing that I think your members want to know is, how is this going to be achieved? I mean, there's been a 10-year delay so far. And first off, I really also like about the plan is how you put it into stages. I think there's 4 phases and 5 districts. And it's not set in stone, it's very flexible. So you're willing to work with the different levels of government to achieve this streetscape plan. And that's what you need. You need these levels of governments to work together. And that's what the Green Party is about. Mike Schreiner, the leader of the Green Party and the MPP for Guelph, is the only person in the legislature, the only member of the legislature, to get any laws passed in the past 2 years, aside from the Conservatives who have majority government. And he did that by working with other parties. He also put together a bill for the Paris Gulf Moraine water protection, which didn't pass, but when he developed and researched and written the bill, he actually got input from local First Nations, because that's what we're about. We want to know what the locals want, because it's the locals who know the area best and to know how to implement ideas the best. Now, Green Party only has 1 member so far, but BC and Prince Edward Island also started with just 1 member each. And after they elected Andrew Weaver in British Columbia, the next election, we now have the balance of power out there, so we are able to influence the government. In Prince Edward Island, after electing Peter Bevan Baker, we now are the official opposition out there, after just 1 government. So now that we have Mike Schreiner here in Ontario, we'll be in the leaders' debate, and it's more than possible that the Green Party could have one of those 2 things in the next government. So what I ask is that you consider who will work for you in this election, okay? Unfortunately, you know that other levels of government, other parties can let you down, and that's part of the reason why I joined the Green Party, so I'm just tired of the talk. I want to get things done, and that's what the Green Party is about. when we put out our platform in the last provincial election, the Green Party suggested raising funds for projects exactly like this, from congestion charges, parking levies, and land value taxes, which we believe could raise 3.9 billion per year. And we feel that 5% of the transportation budget should be dedicated towards walking and biking infrastructure. That would help your project, pure and simple. I ask that you use this next 2 years as a test run, because you don't have to worry about strategic voting in this by-election. You're not gonna keep out one type of government or one party. So ask yourself who will be the best to advocate for your plan. And as I say, the Green Party works with other levels of government as much as possible. We talk to other parties. That's how we're able to get things done. In fact, this just happened recently. I'm sure you all know Glenn Murray, who is the former Minister of Infrastructure under the Liberal government, former Minister of the Environment. He's recently come out and endorsed me in this by-election for this riding. Not the Liberal Party, but me. I think that's a telling sign of how the Green Party can work with other levels of government, with other parties to get the job done. So please, look at this next 2 years. And if you don't think I'm doing a good job 2 years from now, elect someone else. But give me 2 years to see what I can do to get your project moving.
Well, it's been a distinct honor to represent the community for the last 15 years, and we've been able to get some big things done together, from new school additions to Millennium Park expansion, attracting Amazon to Carlsbad Springs, and of course championing LRT to Trim Road, which will dramatically change Orleans for generations to come and open up enormous economic development opportunities along the St-Joseph corridor. On February 27th, you have a choice, and it is about Orleans. Who is expressing the most clear and concise and specific plan for Orleans? Not platitudes or rhetoric, not what the party boss is telling them to say, but ideas for Orleans from someone who's grown up in Orleans, who's chosen to raise their family in Orleans, and has been able to work with the business community, with community organizations, with charities, schools, and parent councils to get real important things done. I hope that I can count on your vote on February 27th, and there's a lot of information on my website, stephenblay.com. Thank you.
So the NDP and I want to make life easier for the residents here and for you small business owners. We're proposing a tax cut from 13 to 11.5% for small businesses. The NDP is the official opposition right now. Liberals are third party, no leader, only 6 members. They don't have a voice at Queen's Park. You needed an advocate that's gonna fight for your plan, and I'm that advocate. I spent my entire life really trying to fight for everyone, workers, the most vulnerable, and I will fight for the residents of Orleans. This is my community. I'm not in this to just advance my career, to move up in the world. I'm in this because I care about the people here. I care about the small business owners here. I've met with people one-on-one. This is what I offer, somebody who's gonna be there to fight for you. NDP MPPs came and helped the Cardinal Creek residents having issues with the mold in their homes when their councillor failed them, when the Liberal Party failed them, when their MP failed them. This is what the NDP does. We do the work on the ground, we do the work at Queen's Park, pushing back on the callous cuts of the Conservative governments. We've been doing this since 2018, and in 2022, we're poised to form government, and we're gonna be there for the residents of Orleans and for the entire province. Thank you.
Premièrement, merci à votre conseil d'administration pour la belle occasion de parler aujourd'hui. Je l'apprécie beaucoup. I'm Natalie Montgomery, and I'm the candidate who can give Orleans a voice in the government by looking at our entire system as a whole and giving our community and businesses the support that it needs. The alternative is really just leaving Orleans stuck in the status quo. You yourselves have said that this project has been trying to get off the ground for over 10 years, and nothing has happened in terms of moving it forward. You need government that's passionate about business to help you get this off the ground. I maintain that a broken LRT is going to underserve our local businesses. Employees will have a tough time coming to work. Visitors will have limited incentive to come to Orleans. And overall mobility will continue to be restricted. I don't want to see Orleans residents isolated. I want to see them engaging, and I want to see them engaging right here in our community. Our PC government is taking action on reducing red tape and reducing the cost of doing business in Ontario through Better for the People, Smarter for Businesses Act. So they have a minister that's solely in charge of helping small businesses do what they need to do to flourish. And I maintain that making Orleans an attractive place to invest is of primary importance. Finally, renewal planning. We have to work with businesses. You guys are our partners. You know best. You're that front line to residents. So giving businesses a say in the process and giving people a say in the process is extremely important. So I feel that there's a lot at stake in this by-election. There's an opportunity to have a voice at the table in government, or we could just leave Orleans left in the status quo. But it's our quality of life as a whole that matters. A vote for me ensures that Orleans gets its fair share and has an opportunity to really participate in what the great things that the government is doing. So I say let's make Orleans the best that it can be for all of us. Natalie Montgomery, your voice, one choice.
It's a busy time in long days, and we appreciate the opportunity for you to speak with our businesses, because it's very important to us and to them to hear you. Therefore, I would like to once again thank you for the time, and good luck to each and every one of you.